"Then you're mine to protect," said the lonely cowboy, after she was left at the altar. "The twin sons of Zarian." 5 were setting behind the jagged mountains, casting long orange shadows over the dusty streets of Nova Mesa. The town had always been a quiet place, the kind of frontier settlement where everyone knew everyone else, or at least pretended to. But today, the usual calm was shattered. The chatter in the square had shifted from mundane gossip to whispers of scandal. At the center of the commotion stood Alara Dune, her silver wedding dress glowing faintly in the fading sunlight. Her hands clutched the edges of her gown, and her eyes scanned the empty chairs where family, friends, and the officiant should have been. The music had stopped, and the guests had vanished, or maybe they had never come. She didn't know which was worse, being abandoned or realizing she had walked into a trap of silence. From the shadows of the dusty alleyway, a figure watched. Cade Riker, a rugged man in his late 30s, with a wide-brimmed hat and a long duster that had seen better days, leaned against a hovering motorcycle-like vehicle. Its anti-grav engines hummed softly, kicking up small clouds of dust. Cade had come to Nova Mesa seeking nothing more than a quiet corner of the frontier to hide from his past. But fate had a different plan. He noticed her first when a group of townsfolk peeked from behind shuttered windows, whispering about the scene, and then scurried back inside. Something about the way she stood alone, her posture defiant despite the trembling in her hands, caught his attention. It wasn't pity he felt, it was a silent, instinctive recognition. She was vulnerable, yes, but not weak.
As he stepped closer, Kate's boots crunched against the dirt. Alara finally noticed him.
Her eyes widened, uncertainty flickering across her face. Are you here to—" she started, but words failed her. "I'm here to get you out of here," Cade said, his voice calm, low, and steady, carrying over the whispering winds of the town square. "You don't belong in a place like this tonight." Alara blinked. I don't know if I can trust anyone right now," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Everyone left me. My fiancé, he didn't show up. He just left." Cade nodded once, understanding the sting of betrayal all too well. "Then you're mine to protect, for now at least." He offered her a hand, and after a long moment of hesitation, she took it. The moment her fingers brushed his, a spark of relief ran through her. Anyone, was finally on her side. They moved quickly through the streets, Cade leading her past shuttered shops and abandoned market stalls. The town was eerily quiet, save for the soft hum of anti-grav vehicles parked along the side. Despite the futuristic tech scattered around, the town felt old, like a place that had forgotten time. "Alara," Cade said gently, "we need to get you somewhere safe." "Do you have anywhere in mind?" No, she admitted. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I didn't think I'd need to run today." He gave a small, wry smile. "That's the frontier for you. Things don't go the way you plan. But don't worry, you're not alone." Cade guided her to his hideout, a small structure at the edge of town surrounded by jagged rocks and sparse alien vegetation. The place was simple but functional, a small kitchen area, a bunk, and a few weapons neatly stored on a rack. Even in its simplicity, it was safer than wandering the streets of Nova Mesa tonight. Inside, Alara sank onto a chair, her hands gripping the edges tightly. Cade handed her a cup of hot synth tea, steam rising into the dim light. "Here," he said. "You need this more than I do." She took it, her hands shaking, and sipped slowly. The warmth spread through her, grounding her. For the first time since the morning, she felt a flicker of calm. "You're lucky," Cade said, leaning against the doorway. "This town isn't exactly a safe place for someone alone. Not when people like your ex-fiancé leave you in public." Alara frowned, bitterness flashing in her eyes. He just didn't care. I thought I knew him, but She stopped, swallowing hard. "I don't even know why I expected anyone to stay." Cade didn't interrupt. He understood silence better than words, and he let her speak when she needed to. When she finally trailed off, he spoke. Sometimes people show who they really are in moments like this. Better to see it now than later." The evening deepened, and the twin suns disappeared behind the horizon. Shadows stretched across the rocky landscape outside, turning familiar shapes into strange, alien silhouettes. Cade walked to the window and scanned the horizon. His instincts told him they weren't alone. Something, perhaps a scavenger or a rogue drone, was moving in the distance, keeping pace with their small hideout. "Alara," he said without turning, "we might have company. Nothing to panic about yet, but you should be ready." Her heart jumped. What kind of company? Trouble, he said simply. Out here it comes in many forms. Some people, some machines. Either way, we'll handle it together. He moved to the storage rack and pulled down a sleek energy rifle, testing the charge. Then, from a nearby crate, he grabbed 2 small energy pistols, placing one gently in her hands. Here, he said. You'll need this. I'll teach you how to use it. Don't worry, it's not as hard as it looks. Alara's fingers closed around the cool metal. She had never held a weapon before, let alone fired one. Yet, oddly, she felt a sense of empowerment. For the first time today, she wasn't just a victim. She could fight back. Hours passed as they prepared, checking systems on his anti-grav bike and barricading the small hideout. Cade showed her the basics of aiming, the safety locks, and the pulse control. Alara listened intently, trying to absorb everything. As night fully descended, the first threat appeared, a low hum approaching from the valley. A small drone, probably left over from some mining operation, hovered toward them, its sensors glowing red. Cade tensed, moving in front of her instinctively. Stay behind me, he ordered. He fired a warning shot, and the drone veered slightly, assessing its target. It's just a scout, he muttered. Not lethal. Yet. But it means someone or something is tracking you. Alara swallowed, gripping the pistol. Her hands weren't steady, but Cade's calm presence helped her breathe. They watched as the drone disappeared into the night, its sensors flickering out of view. Cade finally relaxed, placing a hand on her shoulder. Nothing we can't handle. You're safe here, for now. Alara looked at him, gratitude and something unspoken passing between them. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come. He nodded, tipping his hat. That's what I do. I protect people who can't protect themselves, and right now, that's you. The night stretched on, filled with quiet conversation, shared stories, and the occasional distant hum of the frontier. Cade learned of her life, the expectations that had been crushed, the loneliness she had felt. She learned fragments of his past, the places he had been, the mistakes he had made. Together, they began building a fragile trust, like 2 travelers in a dangerous landscape finding temporary shelter. Outside, the alien desert shimmered under the light of distant moons, full of unseen dangers and secrets. But inside the small hideout, Alara felt, for the first time in hours, a sense of safety. And Cade, watching over her, felt the stirrings of a new purpose. He had come to this frontier seeking solitude, but he had found a responsibility that mattered, someone to protect, someone who trusted him when the world had turned its back. As sleep finally crept over the small hideout, Cade kept watch by the window, his silhouette outlined against the alien night. Somewhere out there a threat lingered, but he would meet it head-on. And beside him, Alara slept, unaware of the dangers yet feeling secure. For tonight, at least, she was not alone. End of Part 1. The morning sun rose over the twin horizons of Zarian, 5 casting pale violet light across the jagged alien plains. Cade Riker's anti-grav bike hummed softly as he led Alara out of Nova Mesa, away from the gossiping town and the memories of the abandoned wedding. She sat behind him, gripping the bike's straps tightly, her silver hair catching the morning light. The wind carried the faint scent of strange desert blooms, and for the first time since the chaos of yesterday, she felt almost normal. Cade glanced over his shoulder. We've got a long ride ahead. You ready? Alara swallowed hard. I guess I don't have a choice, she said with a weak smile. I hope we don't run into more drones, he smirked. Frontiers aren't known for being safe, but I promise, I'll keep you alive. They rode across the plains, where the sand shimmered with a faint bioluminescent glow, and jagged rock formations floated silently in the low gravity. Every so often, a small dust whirl would rise from the ground, spinning in unnatural patterns before settling. The landscape seemed alive, as if the planet itself was observing them. Alara, Cade said after a long stretch of silence, tell me, why did he leave you? I need to understand. Her gaze remained on the horizon, distant and thoughtful. I think he never wanted this at all. He just followed what everyone else expected, what his family expected. I didn't even get a real chance to know him, to know if he cared. Her voice cracked slightly. I thought... Cade's expression softened. Sometimes people aren't ready for the frontier. They can't handle honesty or risk or responsibility. You're not the problem. He is. Her fingers tightened on the bike's straps, but she felt a small weight lift from her chest. She didn't have to blame herself. She didn't have to feel weak. Cade was right. The fault wasn't hers. Hours passed as they traveled. Cade occasionally pointed out landmarks, a jagged crystal canyon that hummed like a resonating drum when the wind passed through it, a shallow river of liquid silver that reflected the twin suns like mirrors. Despite the harshness of the landscape, it was breathtaking. Alara couldn't help but be distracted even for a moment by the beauty. Then, in the distance, a faint shimmer appeared. At first it looked like heat waves, but Cade narrowed his eyes. Scavengers. Definitely not local wildlife. Before she could ask, a small group of desert riders appeared, mounted on hovering bikes with thrusters that kicked up blue sparks from the glowing sand. Their helmets reflected Cade and Alara's forms, twisted into distorted shapes by the shimmering plains. Cade slowed the bike slightly and whispered, "These types look for prey. They might be after you." Alara's stomach turned. "Why me?" "I'm not important. You're important enough to survive," Cade interrupted firmly. "And right now, that's all that matters." The scavengers drew closer, their hoverbikes skimming just above the glowing sand. Cade adjusted the bike's energy shield and whispered instructions. "Stay low, keep close. Don't grab the weapons unless I say so." Alara's heart raced as they passed through a narrow canyon. Sparks flew as one of the scavengers tried to ram Cade's bike. Cade swerved expertly, sending the attacker tumbling into a sand dune. Alara gasped, her grip tightening. "You okay?" he asked over his shoulder. I think so," she said shakily. "That was terrifying." Cade smiled faintly. "First time in danger, huh? Don't worry. You'll get used to it, or at least you'll learn to handle it." For the next hour, they evaded the scavengers, weaving through crystal forests and over rivers of reflective silver. Cade guided them with precision, using the terrain to their advantage. Alara began to relax, trusting his instincts more than her own fear. When they finally stopped for a short rest at the edge of a rocky plateau, Cade handed her a bottle of water. She drank, the cool liquid soothing her dry throat. "You're doing better than I expected," Cade said, watching her carefully. "Most people would have panicked by now." Alara gave a small smile. "Maybe I'm learning from the best," she teased. Cade laughed softly, shaking his head. "Don't flatter me. I'm not the best. I'm just experienced." As they rested, Alara noticed strange markings on the rocks nearby, faint, glowing symbols that pulsed like slow heartbeats. She pointed.
"What's that?"
Cade frowned. Old alien language. Could be warnings, could be nothing. Either way, we should stay alert. Night fell, and the twin moons rose high above the plains. The light bathed the landscape in soft silver, turning the floating rocks into dark silhouettes against the sky. Cade set up a small temporary shelter using energy shields, creating a dome that protected them from the cold and the harsh winds. "Alara, we'll sleep in shifts. I'll watch first." He handed her a small blanket. "Try to get some rest. We've got a long journey ahead." She nodded, lying down but unable to sleep. Her mind replayed the events of the last 2 days. The wedding, the abandonment, the sudden appearance of Cade. She realized she was exhausted but also strangely invigorated. For the first time, someone had shown her kindness and courage. Someone was standing by her, no matter what. A faint hum reached her ears. At first she thought it was the wind, but then she saw it. A tiny scout drone, hovering just beyond the protective shield, its sensors glowing red. Cade noticed it immediately, placing himself between the drone and her. "Stay low," he whispered. He reached into a pouch and pulled out a small EMP device. With a quick flick, the device discharged a pulse, sending the drone spinning out of control before crashing into a distant rock. Alara's eyes widened. That was incredible. Cade shrugged, as if it was nothing. "Frontier life. You get used to it. But it means someone or something is tracking you. That drone wasn't random." Her heart sank slightly, realizing her problems weren't over. But at the same time, a small spark of determination grew inside her. She was not helpless. She was learning. And Cade was not just a protector, he was a teacher, guiding her through this alien, dangerous world. The rest of the night passed quietly, with only the distant cries of alien creatures and the hum of the wind. Alara slept lightly, staying close to Cade's side, comforted by his steady presence. He, in turn, kept his senses alert, watching the plains with sharp eyes, ready for whatever threat might come next. As dawn broke again, painting the plains with pink and gold, Cade prepared the bike for departure. "We move at first light," he said. There's a space station nearby. Abandoned, but it might have the answers we need. It's not far, and it's better than staying in the open plains. Elara nodded, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. A space station? She asked. Yeah, Cade said. Old, forgotten, probably full of traps and surprises. But if we want to know why someone is hunting you, that's where we'll find answers. They mounted the bike, the anti-grav engines humming to life. As they rode across the alien plains, Elara felt a strange sense of freedom. She had left behind the shame, the humiliation, and the fear. With Cade beside her, she was learning that survival wasn't just about running. It was about standing tall, facing danger, and trusting the right person to guide you. In the distance, the silhouette of the abandoned space station appeared, a dark outline against the morning light. Cade's jaw tightened. "Get ready," he said. "This is where it gets interesting." Elara gripped the straps of the bike. She was scared, yes, but she was ready. For the first time, she wasn't just a victim of circumstance. She was a traveler, a fighter, a survivor. And Cade was more than a protector now. He was the anchor in the chaos, the steady hand guiding her across the starlit plains of Zarian. And somewhere within the station, answers awaited that would change everything. End of Part 2. The abandoned space station rose from the desert like a broken crown. Its metal towers were rusted and dark, and long cables hung loose, swaying slowly in the thin wind. Cade slowed the iGrev bike as they approached, his eyes scanning every shadow. Elara felt a chill run through her, even before they stepped inside. "This place looks dead," Elara said softly. "Dead doesn't always mean empty," Cade replied. "Stay close to me." They parked the bike near a collapsed landing pad. The station doors stood half open, bent and scarred as if something large had forced its way out long ago. Inside, the air was cold and still. Dim emergency lights flickered, casting long shadows across the wide metal corridor. Their footsteps echoed as they moved forward. Elara hugged her jacket tighter. Why would answers be here? Cade touched a glowing panel on the wall, waking it from sleep. Because stations like this don't just get abandoned. Someone shut it down, and someone turned parts of it back on. As they walked deeper, broken service drones lay scattered across the floor. Some were melted, others torn apart. Cade crouched beside one and studied it. "These weren't accidents," he said. "Someone reprogrammed them. Same tech as the drone that followed you." Elara's heart sank. "So, someone really is after me?" "Yes," Cade said calmly, "but they're scared enough to hide behind machines. That tells me something." They reached a central control chamber. A large glass dome above them revealed the pale sky of Zarian 5. In the center of the room stood a circular console, still glowing faintly blue. Suddenly the lights brightened. A smooth mechanical voice filled the chamber. "Identities detected. Welcome back." Elara froze. Cade slowly raised his hand, signaling her to stay still. "I am Station Intelligence Core A-17, the voice continued. "This facility has been offline for 17 years. Why have you returned?" Cade stepped forward. "We didn't come to wake you."
"But you've been sending drones into the desert."
There was a pause. Then the light shifted from blue to amber. "Correction," the AI replied. "Defense protocols were reactivated by an external user." Elara swallowed. "External user?" "Yes," the AI said. "A registered human accessed my systems remotely. Pre-may be objective, monitor and contain Elara Dune." Elara felt the floor shift beneath her. "Contain me? Why?" The AI's lights pulsed. "Query, would you like to video the record?" Cade didn't hesitate. "Show us!" A holographic image appeared in the air. It showed a man in fine clothes, standing in a bright city office. Elara recognized him instantly. "That's him," she whispered. "The man I was supposed to marry." Cade's jaw tightened. The hologram spoke. "She cannot leave Zarian 5. If she does, the contract fails. Track her movements. Use fear if necessary." The image vanished. Elara felt tears burn her eyes, but she stood straight. "I was never a partner to him. I was an asset." Cade placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Not anymore." The AI spoke again. "Defense systems are active. Station core will overload in 30 minutes if remote control is not terminated." Cade's eyes widened slightly. "That means we're on a timer." Before Elara could respond, Alarms began to echo through the station. Doors slammed shut around them. Heavy footsteps rang out in the distance. "Security units online," Cade said. "We move." Now. They ran through side corridors as metal guardians emerged from hidden walls. Cade fired precise energy shots, disabling joints and sensors. Alara followed closely, remembering everything he had taught her. One machine blocked their path. Cade's rifle overheated. "Alara," he said quickly, "aim for the blue node. Center chest." Her hands shook, but she focused, breathed, and fired. She stared at it, stunned. "I did it." Cade smiled briefly. "You're learning fast." They reached a narrow maintenance shaft. Cade pried it open and guided her inside. The sounds of machines echoed behind them. As they climbed, Alara spoke quietly. "He wanted to control my future, even after leaving me." Cade looked back at her. "Some people don't know how to let go, but you don't belong to anyone." They emerged near the station core. The room glowed bright white, energy flowing through massive conduits. In the center stood the core crystal, pulsing faster with every second. The AI spoke again. "Remote users still connected. Manual override required." Cade examined the controls. "I'll cut the link, but when I do, the station will shut down completely." Alara nodded. "We'll run." As Cade worked, Alara noticed another hologram forming. Her former fiancé appeared again, anger clear on his face. "You ruined everything," the image snapped. "You were supposed to stay where I placed you." Alara stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. "I was never yours to place." The hologram flickered, then vanished as Cade pulled the final control. The station trembled.
"Override complete," the AI announced. "Core collapse in 5 minutes." They ran.
Corridors collapsed behind them as lights exploded and metal screamed. Cade shielded Alara as debris fell, guiding her toward the exit. They reached the landing pad just as the ground shook violently. Cade started the anti-grav bike, engines screaming to life. They raced away as the station collapsed in on itself, folding like a dying star before disappearing into the desert in a blast of light and dust. Miles away, Cade stopped the bike. Silence returned. Alara stared at the horizon, breathing hard. "It's over." Cade nodded. "For him, yes." She looked at Cade, emotion filling her eyes. "You didn't just protect me. You helped me stand on my own." He tipped his hat slightly. "You had that strength already. You just needed someone to remind you." As the dust settled behind them, Alara knew something had changed. The fear was gone. In its place was clarity and choice. And ahead of them lay a future neither of them had planned, but both were ready to face. End of Part 3, The Desert of Zarian. 5 was quiet after the fall of the station. Fine dust still drifted through the air, glowing faintly under the rising suns. Cade Riker guided the anti-grav bike across the open land, away from the ruins. Alara sat behind him, her arms wrapped lightly around his waist. Not from fear this time, but from balance and trust. Neither of them spoke for a long while. Finally, Alara broke the silence. "So, what happens now?" Cade slowed the bike and stopped near a ridge overlooking the wide plains. Floating stones drifted lazily in the sky, and distant creatures moved like shadows across the glowing sand. "That's up to you," Cade said. "You're free now. No trackers, no contracts." Alara stepped off the bike and looked out over the horizon. For the first time in her life, there was no plan written by someone else. The feeling was scary, but also powerful. "I don't want to run anymore," she said. "I want to choose." Before Cade could answer, his scanner beeped sharply. He frowned and checked the display. "We're not done yet," he said. "A signal just went out when the station collapsed." Alara's heart tightened. "From him?" "From his people," Cade replied. "Looks like a hired recovery unit. They'll want to clean up loose ends." The ground trembled in the distance. 3 armored transports rose over the dunes, their engines cutting through the air. Alara stood tall. "Then we face them." Cade studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right, but we do it smart." They moved quickly, setting up behind a line of tall rock spires. Cade placed small energy traps in the sand while Alara watched carefully, remembering everything she had learned. "You're not hiding behind me," Cade said quietly. "You stand with me," she smiled. "I wouldn't have it any other way." The first transport landed with a heavy thud. Armed figures stepped out, moving in careful formation. A voice echoed across the plain. Alara Dune, you are requested to return for contract settlement. Alara stepped forward, her voice steady. There is no contract. And I'm not going anywhere. The figures raised their weapons. But Cade triggered the traps. Bright pulses erupted from the sand, knocking weapons from their hands and forcing them back. The second group tried to flank them, but Alara fired controlled shots at the ground near their feet, forcing them to retreat. Her hands were steady now. Her fear was gone. Cade moved beside her, calm and precise. You're doing great. The last transport powered up its engines, preparing to leave. They're retreating, Alara said. Good, Cade replied. That means the message got through. The planes grew quiet again as the transports disappeared into the sky.
Alara exhaled slowly. I didn't think I could do that.
Cade looked at her with quiet pride. You always could. You just needed the chance. They returned to the bike and rode until the sun dipped low. Eventually they reached a small frontier town built along an old trade route. Lights glowed warmly from its windows, and people moved freely through the streets. This place is different, Alara said. No fear. No hiding. It's a new settlement, Cade replied. They could use help. Protection. Guidance. Alara looked at him carefully. Is that what you want? Cade removed his hat, holding it in his hands. I spent years running from responsibility, protecting people from a distance. But with you, I realized something. He met her eyes. Protection isn't about standing in front of someone forever. It's about standing beside them. Alara felt emotion rise in her chest. Then stay, with me. They helped the town defend itself from small dangers, fix old systems, and train volunteers. Days turned into weeks. Alara learned to ride, to plan, to lead. Cade watched as she grew more confident, more sure of herself. One evening, under a sky filled with stars, they stood on a hill overlooking the town. You know, Alara said, smiling softly, I used to think being left at the altar meant I was unwanted. Cade shook his head. It meant you were spared the wrong future. She turned to him. And you? He smiled. I stopped being lonely the day I chose to protect someone and let myself be seen. Cade reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal badge, an old frontier symbol of guardianship. This isn't ownership, he said. It's a promise, if you want it. Alara took it, her eyes shining. I do. They stood together as the wind passed gently over the plains. No contracts, no chains, just choice, trust, and a shared future. Far away, the desert of Zarian, 5 stretched endlessly, but for the first time, it felt like home. And though the cowboy had once said, then you're mine to protect, the truth had become something better. They protected each other.